Recently, we had a rep named Ty Dawkins sell over $100,000 for the summer. Now, just to give you an idea of how amazing this feat was, at the time, only he and 3 other reps in the company's history have done this. Now, I got to go to a Vector conference to hear Ty speak, and he started out by saying, "I will give $100." And he pulled out a nice, crisp $100 bill. I'm not kidding. He actually did this. I don't think anyone knew he was going to do this, but he did it. He said, "I will give $100 to anyone who can say the one word that made the difference between why I sold more than everyone else in this room." The one word. So people were guessing. Service. Love. Work. One person even guessed awesome. The word was hello. He said, "The reason I sold more than you is because I said hello more times than you. I got on the phone more than you did." Now, early in my career, I noticed a gap in my results. I had 2 weeks in a row over $6,000. Then I had 2 weeks at $3,000 each week. So that's a 50% difference. That's pretty significant. So I was trying to figure out what was going on, what was causing this. And so I went back through my planner, and I realized that in the weeks that I had sold over $6,000, I was making twice as many phone calls as I'd made in the weeks that I sold only $3,000. And it doesn't matter if the number is 250 or 25,000 or 1,000. You want to focus on the phone, focus on the phone, focus on the... You got it. It will make you or break you every time. The phone is this business. I remember when I was in my fast start. In fact, I even remember from the day 3 of training when I was making phone calls for the very first time, I remember being totally scared of the phone. And one of the ways I would shore up my fear is, first off, I would do phone time in the office, which is a really good idea. Because when in the office, you don't have a million distractions, and it just feels more natural. You feel more comfortable being on the phone. So I was in the office, and one of the things I would do to shore up my courage was I would have my script right in front of me. And I would almost like play mind tricks on myself. I would like try to think of something else while the number was dialing. In other words, like I'm dialing the number and I'm trying to think about something else. And it's ringing, and part of me is thinking, please don't pick up, please don't pick up, please don't pick up. And I'm thinking, as soon as they pick up, if they do, I'm just going to read this. I'm just going to read this. I'm just going to read this. And it's right in front of me. And then when they pick up, I would just read straight from the script, which is incidentally one of the reasons I became successful, is because I was just reading the script. The script was written by someone with a lot more training than I had. And I even remember there would be times when I would stare at the phone and I would pace, and I would be like, I'm not leaving this room, because I would use one of the spare rooms in the office to do phone time sometimes. And I would be like, I'm not leaving this room until I pick up that phone. I'm not leaving. I don't care if I have to go to the bathroom. But even so, I was so afraid of the phone that I would still be pacing. And eventually I'd muster up the courage to pick up, dial the numbers, close my eyes, hope that no one answered, and when they did, read the script. Now that doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun. But what the funny thing was that I started to notice was that the only really difficult phone calls were the first call. The first call was by far the toughest. Anytime I would do phone time, the first call was like impossible. The second call usually wasn't too bad. The third call started to get easy. And by the fourth, fifth, sixth call, it was totally easy. And then I could make 20 calls, 30 calls, 35 calls. No problem whatsoever. And eventually, as I got better and better, and as I started to use some of the techniques and I started to think some of the thoughts that I'm about to be sharing with you in this session, I got to the point where I could make 50 calls. And then I'd have a push period, and before the push period, I'd make 100 phone calls. And then I had an even bigger push period, and I'd make 200 phone calls. And I even had one time where in one day, I made 300 phone calls, which takes about 10 to 12 hours. Now, I'm not saying that because I think that that's what you should do. I'm not saying that because that's what every rep does, because not every rep does that. Although I do know a rep right now who makes 300 phone calls every single Sunday. And he sells about 40,000 CPO a month. And I know some of you are thinking, where in the world to get 300 people to call? We'll talk about that when we get to leads. But I'm not sharing this with you so that you can go and make 300 phone calls. I just want you to know what the possibilities are that are out there. The fact that I used to be terrified of the phone, and now I have absolutely no problem sitting down and making 20 calls, 50 calls, 75 calls, and so on. So how do we overcome the fear of the phone? First off, you need to realize that you're not afraid of the phone. The phone is a piece of plastic. You're not scared of this little piece of plastic that has a few cheap wires in it that was probably made in China. Think about it this way. If you knew for a fact that every single person that you called would say, yes, we are totally excited to have you come over. When do you want to come? If you knew for a fact that that would happen, would you be afraid then? Probably not. And I know some of you are anything but afraid of the phone when it comes to talking to your friends on the phone. And what you're afraid of isn't the phone. What we're afraid of is rejection. So let's think about this for a minute. First off, people aren't that likely to tell you no. And for the people that do say no, you need to take a step back for a second and analyze the situation. All right? Because there's two things. There's what actually happens, and then there's the big old story that we tell ourselves about what happens. Think about that for a minute. We tell ourselves, oh my God, this person said no. Oh my God, I was totally harassing that person. What actually happened? You asked someone to set an appointment with you. They said they were too busy, or for some other reason you weren't able to coordinate it. You offered some counter proposals, and the two of you were unable to coordinate a meeting. That's it. Is that the end of the world? That's not rejection. That's a conversation. If you call your friend and say, hey, you want to go to the movies? And he says, sorry, I have to study. You don't get off the phone going, oh my God, I'm so rejected. I'm never going to call any of my friends ever again. But all of a sudden it becomes so different because we're calling someone to try to set up a different type of appointment. Or because we're calling someone that we don't know. It's not any different. Does it really serve you? Does it really help us when we make up these big, huge stories about that have all this drama and all this emotional content and pain and everything about what happened when you called someone to ask if you could set up a meeting and they were unable to set a meeting with you? And besides, we don't get rejected much in this business. But rejection is a part of life. And the more successful you want to be, the more rejection you're going to have to go through. Sylvester Stallone was a no-name actor who had very, very little money. And he wrote the screenplay for a movie he called Rocky. And he was told by producers, we'll do Rocky, but not if you star in it. He wanted to be the star. He held out and finally was able to convince someone to let him star in the movie that, of course, he had written. Now think about this. Millions of dollars and 10 Academy Award nominations, including winning Best Picture. 10 Academy Award nominations and millions of dollars years later. The film was such a big deal that it was introduced in the National Film Registry. The film's props were placed in the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. A statue of Rocky, the character, was placed permanently in front of that museum in Philadelphia, where the steps that he climbs in the movie. And in 2010, Stallone was voted into Boxing's Hall of Fame for the movie. And they said, we'll do the movie, but not if you're in it. Madeleine L'Engle wrote the book A Wrinkle in Time, which won all sorts of awards and has continuously been in publication since 1962. She was rejected 26 times before someone agreed to publish that book. Henry Ford, founder of Ford Motor Company. R.H. Macy, founder of Macy's Department Stores. Ford went through a failed business that basically dissolved, and he went to another company where he couldn't get along with someone. The dispute was so bad that even though the company was called Ford Company, he left and they changed the name to Cadillac before he went out and founded his own Ford Company. How's that for handling rejection? R.H. Macy, founder of Macy's Department Stores, owned and operated 4 other stores of that type that each went out of business before he was finally successful with the Macy's department store. Soichiro Honda, right, of Honda Cars, he tried to get a job at Toyota, got rejected, had no money, was unemployed, and started making little motorized scooters in his garage. And eventually, people were able to convince him to start his own company. Now, maybe you're not looking to be rich and famous. Maybe you don't want to make your own movie or publish a best-selling book or start your own multi-million, multi-billion-dollar company. But maybe you do want to find that special someone. Maybe you want to be better at handling yourself around members of the opposite sex. Maybe you do want to have a different job besides Vector someday. Those things involve rejection too. Maybe you want to go to graduate school, become a lawyer, a doctor, get your MBA. There's rejection in that too. When I applied to college out of high school, I applied to 7 colleges, got rejected by 6. When I applied to graduate school, I applied to 4 programs, got rejected by 3. I didn't have a very difficult decision on where I was going to grad school. But I went and got my bachelor's, and I went and got my master's. Maybe you want to be a mom or a dad. And if you really want to be able to love someone, you have to have that strength where you're going to do what's right for them. Even if when they get to that certain age and they rebel against you, even if they get to that age and they reject you, you do the right thing because you can handle it. Learning to put up with rejection, learning how to handle it, learning how to reframe it, that is a critical part of life. And we don't even get rejected that much at this job. There are some jobs out there where you have to make 30, 50, 100 calls just to set one appointment. Nationally, our closing ratio is about 60%. There are numerous jobs, from real estate to selling insurance to all sorts of other sales jobs, where a good closing ratio is 11%. 19% is some of the best in that industry. So we don't get the chance to practice it all the time. But being able to keep going when people say no to you is a critical skill that we're developing here. So let's quit being afraid of something that almost never happens and that isn't that big a deal when it does. Now, one of the first things that you want to try to do is work smart on the phone. Now, you can call people pretty much any time between 7 a.m. and about 10 p.m. any day of the week. In fact, I've always thought that doing phone time on a Friday night was just not a good idea. And I have a friend who's a Hall of Famer who says he always does phone time whenever he's got a big push coming up. And this is a guy who consistently has done $10K, $20K, even $30,000 pushes. Who tells me whenever there's a push coming up, he does a huge chunk of his phone time the Friday night and the Saturday night before it. And I've always thought Saturday night must be a terrible time to call people because they're all going out. And I told him that, and he said, no, man, I've been doing this for years. I love calling people Saturday night. So you never know. But in general, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. are great times to get people. And so is about 12 to 1 because you can get people in that lunch hour. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, anytime from 7 to 9 p.m. is usually among the best times. So you can call it 6, you can call it 9:30, you can call it 5, or you can call it 2 in the afternoon. But the most effective time is usually going to be sometime between 7 and 9, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Fridays, I like to call a little bit earlier, sometime between 6 and 8 usually. Sundays, anywhere between 6 and 9 is usually pretty good. Saturday and Sunday mornings, anytime between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. are usually really good times to get people. Another part about working smart on the phone is something that I've already mentioned, and that's doing phone time in the office. So I already talked about why that's important. But sometimes we can't get motivated to do phone time. This is a little bit like working out. You might not be able to get motivated to go to the gym, but can you at least get motivated to put the gym bag in the car? And if you can get motivated to get your gym bag and put it in the car, you can usually get motivated to sit in your car in the driver's seat. And if you're sitting in your driveway, and you're in the driver's seat, in your car, and the gym bag is in the back seat, then you're probably going to be able to get motivated enough to drive to the gym. And if you've driven to the gym, and your gym bag's in the back seat, then you're probably going to be motivated enough to walk in. And if you've already walked in the gym, you've already got your gym bag, you're probably going to be motivated to actually work out. Sometimes it's the same way with the phone. You can't get motivated to get on the phone, but you can get motivated to get all your leads and to get your schedule and to put it in the car and sit in the driveway. And if you got that, you can get to the office. And if you can get to the office, you can usually get on the phone. Now, you might be thinking, 7 a.m.? Are you serious? You call someone at 7 a.m.? At least I remember thinking that when I first started this job. I remember thinking that 7 a.m. was just plain too early to be calling someone. And if I was calling one of my friends, that probably would have been true. But we're not calling our friends. We're calling people who are a little bit more like our parents. And I don't know about your parents, but at 7 a.m., my dad is sitting reading the paper and sipping coffee. And my mom is pretty much doing the same thing. My mom's checking her email. And my stepmom is usually getting ready for work. These are perfect times to call people like that. I don't know if you've ever had to drive through a school zone around 8:15 in the morning, but it's unbelievably crowded and traffic is super thick. And so what's funny, if you call from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., what you'll notice sometimes is that you get all these people on the phone until about 7:35, 7:45, and then until about 8:15, it's hard to get people on the phone again sometimes. Around 8:15, 8:30, you start getting people on the phone again. In other words, people start answering the phone again. That's because all the moms who went to drop their kids off at school are leaving at about 7:30 and coming back at about 8:15. Catch them before they leave. Catch people before they head out for work. Not only will they be home and awake and alert, but they'll also be impressed at how hard you're working and how seriously you're taking the scholarship, how seriously you're taking your job. Now, worst case scenario, someone picks up the phone and they're tired. You can tell that they were asleep for whatever reason. They pick up the phone, they go, "Hello?" You just say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'll call you right back. Were you asleep? I'll call you back in a little bit." You call them back an hour later. I do this all the time. When I call back an hour later, they almost always say, "Sorry about that. I was asleep. I was up later last night than I expected to be." Because people who aren't 20 years old, people who aren't in college, people who aren't 22, 23, 24 years old, they're getting up that early. So there's nothing wrong with calling early. In fact, Sean Henry, who won 2 silver cups in a row, I think he was a third rep in the history of the company to do that, he said the secret to his success was 7 a.m. phone time. So you don't have to call at 7 a.m. But don't be afraid of calling that early. It's not any different than calling at 7 p.m. Another important thing about phone time is you want to remember that there's always someone to call. I have never in my career heard of a rep who truly ran out of people to call, who literally had no one that they could call. I've heard of reps who've run out of people that they're comfortable calling and who are down to their elementary school teacher, their landlord, their professors. And that's why we have a chicken list. That's why it's called that. These are people that were chicken to call. But I've never heard of someone who actually ran out of people to call. There's always someone to call. I remember when I was working as an assistant manager in the office, and we'd have 10K fast starters and even some 20K fast starters sell $20,000 in their fast start. And they would come to me and they would say, "I don't know how to call leads," because they hadn't called their leads yet. They were at $10,000 and $20,000 in sales, and they hadn't called any of the leads that they'd gotten from their fast start yet. And so they were coming to me for help on how to call leads because they didn't know what to say. Well, obviously, if you're from out of town, it might be a little bit different. But with the new virtual demo, with the phone demo, we have various ways of helping people in those situations. And that's something you're going to, of course, want to talk to your manager about. Just to prove my point, I'm over $800,000 in career sales as of this recording. My mom, in her Outlook, has over 1,400 contacts. I have called fewer than 30 of them. When I did my initial names list, it was my initial names list. My dad has this little brown address book that he's had for like 30 years, and it's like falling apart, and he still uses it. Anyway, that book probably has about 800 or 900 names in it. I've probably called 25 of them. Because of the things I'm going to be teaching you on how to get leads, because I read the manual, because I read the script, I never even needed to tap that resource. My high school, I graduated with 400 other people. I have probably seen 3 or 4 of their parents. And that's not even to mention the class above me and the class below me. So if you have to, use a directory, use a church directory, use a neighborhood directory, use an address book, use your yearbook, use your school directory. Go see professors, go see your landlord. Explain how important this is to you, to your parents, and they'll help you brainstorm. Do the same thing with your aunts and uncles. Find out how many friends they have on Facebook. There's always someone to call. And if you feel like there isn't, that's something you're going to want to talk to your manager about. Another thing with your phone time. Always use an approach. I can recite my approaches backwards, but even so, I still have it in front of me to make sure that I don't forget anything. It's also there to make sure that I don't start cutting corners. You also might want to practice on your approach before you make your first call. Just read over it once or twice, say it out loud, role play a little bit. Don't use this as an excuse to procrastinate, but you may want to look over it a couple times before you make your first call. And then have it with you in case you do freeze up. Just do what I did and just read the script. You can't go wrong reading the script. And be ready to use your objection cycle. If you're following the program, if you're reading a script, there's only a few objections that you should really ever get on the phone. And there's basically 4 of them. I'm too busy, or some version of that. Sometimes I'm too busy plus the reason. I'm too busy because school's letting out. I'm too busy because school's starting. I'm too busy because it's tax season. I'm too busy because of the holidays. In fact, you can take a calendar and name any month. And someone who's an experienced manager or an experienced sales rep can tell you what are the excuses that people make for that given month. So I'm too busy is one. I don't want to buy anything, or I already have knives, or some version of that. And I already own Cutco, or I've already seen the presentation. Those are the only objections that you should really be getting if you're doing this correctly. And by doing this right, I mean if you're using a script given to you by your manager, if you're doing what you learned in training. So let's talk about that first objection. I'm too busy. This is one of the best objections because you're probably going to be hearing it all the time. And my favorite thing about it is that it doesn't really mean anything. And I say that and you might be raising an eyebrow, but here's what I mean. When someone says they're busy, it's like when you walk into a store and the salesperson asks if you're looking for anything or if they can help you. And you say, no, that's fine, I'm just looking. But you've actually gone in the store to get something, so they probably could help you because they're pretty much in that store all day, most days of the week. But it's just our natural inclination to just say, no, that's fine, I'm just looking. In fact, some retail stores have actually started training their salespeople not to ask, can I help you? Because customers are so frequently inclined to say, no, I'm just looking. And then the customer doesn't get the help that they actually need. So they say something like, I've been in here all day, how's the weather outside? Is it still hot? Is it still raining? Or how's your day going? Before they ask if they can help. Or when you bump into someone and say, how you doing? You say, I'm doing fine. You don't usually mean that you're doing fine. You're either doing good, you're doing poorly, you're doing whatever, but you don't really want to get into it. In fact, one time I gave someone an honest answer. Someone that I didn't know very well was asking me how I was doing, and I gave them a full answer that was like, well, this is really what's going on. And the other person actually said, no, actually, I didn't really mean how are you doing. I was just saying that to be polite. So when someone says, I'm busy, it's just a filler. And not only that, you should expect that the people you're calling are busy. These are married homeowners over the age of 30, and many of them have kids. I don't think I know a single married homeowner over the age of 30 who's not generally busy. Being generally busy and having absolutely no time that you could possibly dedicate to someone for about 30 to 45 minutes to help somebody out, those are two completely different things. So when they say they're busy, stay the course. Stick to your script. Use your objection cycle. It's so easy for us to think, oh, they're busy, and then start to give up. And what you'll find is that if you stick to your script, if you use your objection cycle, you'll be blown away at how many people will tell you that they're busy. And then you just say something real simple like, so you're busy, right? I totally understand. I'm really busy too. I'm a full-time student, and I'm also working really hard right now with my job to try to win a scholarship. Or I'm working really hard this summer so that I can make money to pay for school. Is there any way you could squeeze me in If Saturday at 9 a.m. doesn't work, then I could either do Sunday at 2 or I could do Monday at 7 p.m. Which of those would work best for you? And then they just say, oh, why don't you come by Monday at 7? I've had it where I don't even believe that they're going to say yes. I don't believe that they're going to set an appointment. But I stick to the script anyway because it's my job. And then I'm blown away because they set an appointment. And then I'm thinking, I thought you were busy. Didn't you say you were busy? I've even had it where once I actually get to the house, after we've built rapport and I've made the sale, I even ask them, I said, I thought you said you were busy. And they'll say something like, well, I am, but you just sounded like you really wanted me to help you out, so I'm really glad you came over. Okay, so the ways to handle this objection are to use a contest, to talk about weekly minimums, or to blame your manager. Really, all that needs to happen is you have to give someone a second reason, a new reason that you haven't already given them, and just give them a second reason to say yes. It's that simple. So if you want to use a contest, you just say something real simple like I just gave you. You just say, I know that you're busy. I totally understand that because I'm really busy too. In fact, I'm really busy right now because I'm in this really, really important contest. And then you name the contest, whether it's the All-American Scholarship or a Silver Cup or your Fast Start or a push period, an office push, division push. In this company, you are always in some kind of contest, whether it's a push period or the scholarship or whatever. Just say, I'm in a contest right now, and every appointment that I do gets me one step closer to winning. And in order to win, I need to have 10 appointments every week, and I've already got 4, and I just need to get one more tonight before I finish calling. So if there's any way you could squeeze me in, and then you shoot for times. When you talk about weekly minimums, you don't even need a reason to have a weekly minimum. You just say, I totally understand that you're busy. My minimum every single week, I have to do at least 6 appointments in order to stay on track for my goals. Or you blame your manager. Every single week, so that my manager knows that I'm working, I have to do at least 8 appointments every single week. And I already have 5, and I only need 3 more. Is there any way you could squeeze me in? Now, you can also use information that they give you in order to find ways to make things work, in order to find a way to coordinate the two of you getting together. So if you say, I could do Saturday at 9 a.m. or would 11 a.m. work better for you? And Mrs. Jones says, well, Saturday morning my son has t-ball practice. There's 2 things you can do. First, you can use that as a hook to build rapport. You can say, oh really? How many kids do you have? How old is he? Is he the only one? I remember t-ball. And start asking questions. The more questions you ask, the more rapport you can build over the phone, the more of a relationship that you can start to establish, the easier it's going to be to set an appointment. But what you can also do is just ask a simple question. What time does t-ball practice end? It's usually finished by about 1. Perfect. How about I come by at 2 o'clock? Or if Saturday's just not a good day, I could come by Sunday afternoon around 4. Which of those would be better? Would you want to do after t-ball practice around 2 on Saturday? And there you go. It really is that simple. And the objection cycle really does work. So use it. All right, so let's talk about the next objection. I don't want to buy anything, or I already have knives. Or some version of that. This one's just totally awesome. My favorite is I already have knives. I don't think I know a human being who has a kitchen with no knives in it, so of course they already have knives. What kind of thing is that to say? I don't want to buy anything kind of makes sense, because at least there's a little bit of logic to it. You'll probably hear I don't want to buy anything a little bit less, because your approach should have covered the fact that you get credit or that you get paid whether or not they buy anything. But a lot of times what you'll find is people are only half listening. And sometimes that's just because they're half listening, and sometimes it's because you can hear all sorts of stuff going on in the background. You hear babies crying, or the television on, or you've called them on their cell phone and they're in a restaurant. Or even I once called someone who was in a movie theater who answered their cell phone. And basically you just repeat what you already said with a little bit more enthusiasm. If it's I don't want to buy anything, what they're expecting to hear, and this is what's so great, is you'll break their pattern. And breaking someone's pattern, what that means is that they're in the middle of thinking in a certain direction, and then something happens that someone doesn't expect, and it kind of breaks their thought process. Kind of like if you've ever been really angry at someone and they make you laugh, and you're finding that it's hard to stay angry at that person because they keep making you laugh. So they say that they don't want to buy anything, and they expect you to say, oh, no, I'm okay. And you say, perfect. I don't want to sell you anything. I get paid whether or not you buy anything. And every time I sit down with someone, it gets me one step closer to my goal. And if you don't want to buy anything, that makes the presentation even shorter. So when would be a good time for me to come by? I can do Saturday morning at 9, or I can do a little bit later at 11. Which of those would work better for you? And then set the appointment. If they say they already have knives, they say, I know you already have knives, and you're probably very happy with the knives you have, and I'm sure that the knives you have work perfectly fine. That's why I get paid just to show these to you. You totally don't have to buy anything at all. And plus, I'm in a contest right now, and I only have to set 3 more appointments for this week. So which would be better? I could do Saturday, I could do 9 a.m., or I could do 11 a.m. What works for you? So, last 2 objections that we'll cover, and they're very similar, are I already own Cutco, or I've already seen the presentation. Now, these are 2 very different things. You may run into someone who's already seen the presentation, but did not buy Cutco. Now, what this usually means is that the person who saw them before you wasn't reading the manual, they didn't pay attention in training, and they didn't do it right. That's why they didn't buy. I once knew a rep who went to do an appointment for a customer who had already seen someone before. And when they cut the penny, the customer says, I've never seen that before. That is so awesome. So that rep, the first rep that saw her, paid so little attention, so little pride in what he was doing that he didn't even cut the penny. So just because they say that they've seen the presentation before, that doesn't mean anything. If they say they've seen it before, say perfect. If you've seen it before, then it goes a lot quicker. And you can rate me. You can tell me how good I am compared to the last person that you saw. So this is perfect. So what would work better for you? Saturday at 9 a.m. or I could do a little bit later around 11. Which do you prefer? And I've known reps who go out, they do a presentation for someone who just saw one even a week or 2 ago. The first person they see, they buy a 3-piece special from. And the other rep goes and they buy a Homemaker Plus 8, or they upgrade to a Homemaker Plus 8, or they buy gifts, or they buy table knives. You can totally sell to someone who just saw a presentation. Now, when they say they already own Cutco, this is probably my favorite objection. Because when they say that, what I hear is, I've already bought Cutco, I need them sharpened, and I'd like to buy more. And I know they're not saying that, but I have done so many service calls in my career, and I have sold again and again and again and again on them, that I really do get excited when I hear this objection. And once I teach you service calls, and you'll be blown away at how simple they are. It's wonderful how easy service calls are. And you'll watch the little video with Mindy and see how easy it is to sharpen the knives. It's just a wonderful program. It's a wonderful way to help out customers and to get you some more CPO. So when they say, I already own Cutco, I say, perfect. Oh, that's even better. If you already have Cutco, I can come over. I can sharpen your knives for you. How long have you had them? And if they've had them anything over 6 months, I say, oh, that'd be great for me to... If they've had them 6 months, a year, 2 years, I say, that'd be great. I can come over and I can look at them and see if they need any touching up, because the straight edges usually do. And if I've had them for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, oh, perfect. I can come over. I can sharpen your knives up real quick, and you don't have to sit through the presentation because you've already seen it. I don't have to cut the rope or the leather or the penny. I can just show you the new stuff, and I still get paid whether or not you buy anything. So what's going to work best for you? I can do, and then name your 2 times. Now you might be thinking, if they say they've already seen the presentation, well, they haven't said whether or not they own Cutco. Because what if they've seen the presentation and they do own Cutco, or they've seen it and you don't own Cutco? There's 2 different ways to handle it. Because if you know that they own Cutco, then you tell them you come over and sharpen their knives. And if they've seen it but they didn't buy anything, then you tell them that they can rate you based on the last person, and that it makes the presentation go faster when they've already seen it. And it's real simple. If they say they've seen the presentation, if you want, then just ask them. Or at some point in that phone conversation, either as part of your handling the objection or after you've set it up, you just ask whether or not they own Cutco. So, oh, you've seen the presentation? What did you buy? And if they say nothing, you say, perfect. You can rate me, you can grade me relative to the last person that you saw. And it makes the presentation go much quicker if you've already seen it. And I still get credit. And since I only have one more appointment that I need to set for this week, this will be perfect. And then you name your times. Or if they say, oh yeah, we bought a few knives, or we bought a set, or we bought that big set, which is funny because they'll say they bought the big set and you go over and they own like a Galley Plus 6. Then you just say, perfect. If you own Cutco, then that means you don't have to sit through the presentation. In fact, and then you go right into what you say to handle a service call objection. Now, another important thing to know about phone time is something that I've already mentioned, and that's the value of building rapport on the phone. Building rapport over the phone is about listening and asking questions. So you use your regular approach, and if you go straight through the approach and you just book an appointment with them, no objections whatsoever, then you probably won't really need to build rapport over the phone. And that's totally fine, because you don't have to build rapport over the phone. But what you do want to listen for is when they give you objections, they're giving you pieces of information. And I call those hooks. They're hooks for rapport. You want to grab onto one of those hooks and start talking to them. So just like I gave you that T-ball example, they tell you that they're going on vacation. You say, oh my God, that's fantastic. Where are you guys going? And then they tell you, and you start asking them questions about that. Do you go there every year? Is this your first time? You taking the whole family or just you going? Can I come? You going on vacation to Hawaii? Oh my gosh, that's perfect. I've always wanted to go to Hawaii, and I still get credit if I do a presentation in Hawaii. Got room for one more on the plane? No, you don't have to say that with every single person that says they're going on vacation. But the point is, you find ways to build rapport with them. I can't meet with you because I'm just so busy right now because of work. Really? Oh my God, what do you do for a living? And then ask them a few questions about that. And then get right back into your objection handler. So I totally understand that you're busy because you're a lawyer, or you're really busy because you're working 2 jobs, or whatever it is. You're really busy because you have 5 kids. I'm really busy too because not only am I a full-time student, I need to go right back into handling your objection. In fact, some top reps, when they're qualifying their leads, they'll ask questions about the people that they're going to be calling, not just regular questions. Not just which of these people are married, which of these people are homeowners, which of these people, are over 30, and all those types of questions. But they'll even ask questions like, what can you tell me about Sally here? What's something that's unique about Sally? She throws big parties. And then I once had a customer who introduced me to these people who just throw these ridiculous parties. They even went and grabbed one of the invitations to the parties because the invitation was so big and elaborate and crazy. And so when I called her, I said, is this Sally? Yeah, this is Sally. Is this the Sally that throws the crazy parties that I keep hearing about? And sometimes you can even get into where you've been on the phone with them for even a couple minutes before you even get to your script. Now that's a more advanced skill. And that's something you want to do if you feel really comfortable with it. Make your job fun. But if you're nervous, don't worry about it. Just stick to the script and you'll be fine. Building rapport over the phone is one of those higher level skills. It's nice to add on, but it's not something that you absolutely have to have. It's the fundamentals of the business that really drive things. And the fundamental thing about phone time is reading your script and handling your objections the way you've learned in training. The last valuable phone tip that I'm going to give you is to use social proof. What that means is, feel free to drop names over the phone if you know people that Mrs. Jones knows. If you're working in a particular neighborhood, or you're working with a particular group of moms who know each other, or working your way through a particular church or other organization or business, there's nothing wrong with throwing into your approach, throwing into over the phone all the other people that this person knows who've already helped you. So one thing I used to do is I would say, right at the part where you say, I was over at Susie's house the other day and your name came up, or I'm the student that Susie told you about, I would say, in fact, do you know Sally and Betty and Jane? And they'd be like, yes. Oh, well, they're all people who've been helping me out right now. You see, I'm a student, and then I go into my approach. You want to, if you can put them in a place where they feel like they are the last person that they know that you've called, that's really powerful because people want to do what other people are doing. And if everyone they know is helping you, they're going to want to help you too. And once again, this is one of the more advanced skills that sometimes you're going to be able to use it and sometimes you're not. This is absolutely not something that you need to have. It's something that's nice to have when you can use it. But again, the staples of the business, the basics, the foundations are really what's going to make you successful. So stick to your script and add this in when you can. Now, sometimes you're going to have to stack. Your customer stacks objections. They'll give you more than one. They say they're too busy and they don't want to buy anything. But they say, I'm too busy and plus I already have knives. When they stack objections, you just stack objection handlers. I've had many times where I'm on the phone with someone for just 2, 3, 4 minutes while they're constantly giving me objections and I'm constantly overcoming them. I had one woman who tell me she's too busy. And I said, hey, you're really busy. I completely understand. The reason I understand it so well is because I'm really busy too. I'm a full-time student. Plus on top of that, I have this job and I'm working really, really hard to win a scholarship. So is there any way that you could squeeze me in? I can do Saturday morning, I could do 9 a.m. or I could do 11. Or if that doesn't work, I have a couple of times Sunday afternoon. I could do like 2 p.m. in the afternoon on Sunday. Which of those might work for you? And then instead of answering my question, she says, well, you know what? I really don't want to buy anything. When they switch objections, what that means is that it's working. It means that you overcame the first objection. So that's a good thing. So I've overcome that first objection. Now I'm getting excited because now she's just saying she doesn't want to buy anything. I say, I totally understand that you don't want to buy anything. In fact, what's great about that is I don't want to sell anything. And if you don't want to buy anything, that means the presentation goes even quicker. I'll be in and out before you know it. So which of those times is Saturday work good? I could do 9 or I could do 11. And then she says, well, we already have knives and they're pretty nice. We paid a lot of money for them. We're pretty satisfied with the knives that we have. I totally understand that you already have knives. In fact, you probably already have a really good set of knives. Like you just said, you paid a lot of money for them. So I'm sure the knives you have now are really, really good. I'm in a contest right now, and I get paid whether or not you buy anything. And every single appointment that I do gets me one step closer to winning the contest. So if there's any way that you could squeeze me in, I'll meet with you anytime, day or night, because I'm really serious about this, and I really do want to win that scholarship. I could do 6 a.m., I could do midnight. What's going to be the most convenient for you? And then she laughs, and we finally set the appointment, and I go and see her. Boom, homemaker +8. And she had the really, really good Wursthof. And that's happened more than once. Sometimes you just got to really work hard. Remember, easy jobs don't pay well. Sometimes the phone time's easy. Sometimes it's so easy you just read straight through the script and you just set the appointment. Sometimes you got to read through the script 2 or 3 or 4 times because it's objection after objection after objection. You have to keep going straight back to your objection cycle. Now, lastly, I'm often asked how many phone calls someone should make. Well, the answer really depends on what your goals are. And that's really something that you're going to have to talk about with your manager. If you're going for an All-American scholarship, it's a little bit different than if you just want to do 3 or 4 appointments a week, just enough to stay consistent. If it's the summer, obviously you're probably going to be making more phone calls than you are when you're in school. If you're in a push period, or you're not in school, and you're working really hard, then I recommend making phone calls every single day. Now, they don't have to be a large number every day. 20 or 30 a day really will probably get you what you need. In fact, a few years ago, Hal Elrod did a study. He informally asked basically everyone who'd ever sold 200K how many phone calls they made per week on average. And the average 200K shipper was consistently doing about 15 appointments a week. And the average 100K shipper was consistently doing about 9 appointments a week, 8 or 9 appointments a week. Now, to set 8 or 9 appointments a week, that's about 100 to 200 phone calls a week, depending on how many calls it takes you to set up one appointment. So if you're doing 100 to 200 calls a week, if you do 20 to 30 calls a day, 4 or 5 days a week, you should be fine. What's more important than how many phone calls you do in a sitting or how often you do them is that you do them regularly and that you do them consistently, that you do them frequently. I think it's better to do 20 phone calls every single day than to do 100 phone calls one day a week. But really, this is something that's going to vary from person to person. So it really is something that you're going to need to talk to your manager about, that you're going to have to come up with a plan that's really going to work for you.